Hi everyone, this is a super important message to all the users of Mobincube. So if you have apps published on Google Play and the last update is before November 25th of 2020, you should republish them this week. Okay, so I guess you have received some email from Google telling you that your apps were asking for the location in a background service or something like that. Okay, a lot of users have been asking us what was that. Okay, so I'm going to explain why Google was sending this message. But first, if you don't want to see the whole explanation, at least listen to this. Republish your apps this week if you haven't done so before November 25th. Okay, it's super important. Google might cancel your apps if you don't republish your apps. Okay, so now I'm going to explain what Google is telling you in that email. Okay, so that you can trust that there's nothing wrong in your apps or your apps are not doing some task on the background. Okay, so the thing is that Google is telling you that your apps might be getting the location and sending it to a server in the background, and that's a lie. Okay, I can assure you that your apps are not doing those kind of things. Okay, your apps are not sending location in the background. Okay, your users are totally safe. Okay, so let me explain why Google is telling you that. Okay, so imagine your app. Well, you know that the business model of Mobincube, we charge depending on the amount of active users you have in your app. Okay, so we need to know how many users are using your app. Okay, so every time one app created with Mobincube starts, then it sends a request to our server. Okay, and the app tells the server, hey, this is me. I mean, this is this app, and this is this installation. Okay, so we keep track of all the installations of your apps. Okay, so the thing is that when we do that, I mean, the app needs to send the server the app ID. Well, one small identifier of the app. Okay, the server needs to know which app is this one. Okay, and also an ID, a unique ID for the installation. So every user has a unique ID. Okay, so this is sending the ID of the user and the ID of the install. Okay, so that we can keep track of that. Okay, but what happens when the user starts the app and there's no internet connection? So in that case, the app tries to do it later. Okay, so we have a service on the background. Okay, so after, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes, I'm not sure about the time. Okay, but maybe after 10 minutes, this background service tries to send the same information. Okay, so that we can keep track of how many users use your apps. Okay, so but this is the only information we send to the server. Also here, ID user and ID install. Okay, this is the only information we send to the server. Okay, but why is Google telling you that your apps might be accessing location in a background service? Okay, they are talking about this service. This is the only background service that your app might have. Okay, but the thing is that how does the app get these values? Okay, so you know that in Mobincube you can get some values from the system. Okay, for example, if you are embedding a website, you have the Mobincube protocol, so you can communicate with the native part of your app. Okay, and also in some functions of Mobincube, in some actions, you can use some values. Okay, so if you need to get the language of the device, you can get the user ID, you can get some other values. Okay, you use these curly brackets, and you can use, for example, lang to get the language of the device. Okay, or the user language. You have more values like this one. You can, in fact, you can get the location. So sometimes you need to get the location. So we have one function in the programming world. Things work with functions. Okay, so there are functions that you can. I mean, when you program, you can use functions to get values or to set values. Okay, so there's a function that says I'm not sure of the name exactly, but something like that. Get value. Okay, and when you call this function, you're telling this function which value you want to get. Okay, so you tell, for example, lang. So this function, you call this function get value and give me the value of lang. So you can get the language on the device. Okay, so this function inside has a lot of lines. So this function will return what you are asking. Okay, so if you are asking for the language, this function will return the language. Okay, but if you are asking for the location, this function also has some source code to get the location of the user. Okay, so but well, of course, if you are not asking for the location, even if this part of the code is here, this is never going to be used. Okay, so the thing is that this background service needs to send these values, ID user and ID install. So in order to get these values, it has to make a request to this function. Okay, so this background service will ask this function for the user ID and the install ID. So what happens here? So since we are calling this function inside this background service, Google thinks that all the source code is used inside the background service. Okay, so they think, or they consider, that the location access is also inside this background service, but in fact it's not. It's never used, but it's in the same function. Okay, this is only accessing this, but Google considers that since this piece of code is inside the same function, then it also is contained here in the background service, which is wrong. Again, Google is wrong with this. Okay, so how did we fix this? Okay, so in the past November 25th, we changed the source code of this background service. So now it doesn't call the get value function. Okay, we created a new function called get instance ID or something like that, or install ID. Okay, this function only has this code, the one that the one that gets the user ID and the install ID. Okay, so now this background service is not calling this global function, it's only calling this one. Okay, so this way we make sure that Google can misunderstand this and never consider that we use the location in that background service. Okay, but well, this is the explanation. I just wanted to be transparent with you. I just wanted you to know that your apps are totally safe and we never take the location of the user. Okay, because we don't have any interest of doing that. Okay, your apps are totally safe. Your users are totally safe. Okay, so please believe me that your apps are safe. Okay, so again, please republish this week. If you haven't done so after November 25th, do it this week, okay? Because if you don't do it, your apps might be at risk of being cancelled, okay? So if you have any questions about this, please let us know, okay? Bye.